So this will be the second video on John Deere Big 4, and I hinted at this earlier in the first video about the timing, how to time a Big 4. I want to go over that and a problem with the shoe, and also just a PSA on this nut. Your tendency is going to want to be take a punch or chisel, because these are actually pretty tight for some reason, but your tendency or your kind of first instinct is to take something and chisel that to loosen it. And if you do that, take it from someone who's broken more than his share, you will break that little part off. So you're really left with pipe wrench and heat if necessary. More times than not, you will have to heat them unless it's been worked on. But this goes on the end of your coupling bar right there. And like I say, even though that's a big coarse thread and a big nut, they will freeze up, and you will have the tendency to want to take something and hit that. But you will break those tines off, I guarantee it. Really quicker than you think it will too. So the next thing is, I talked about timing and how to time for how John Deere system much better than McCormick Deering's. And please remember, my videos are not going to be edited. They're always rough. They're always dark. I apologize for that. But as soon as I have to editing videos and so forth to shine them up, that's probably when I won't make any more. So to time the Big 4, I talked about these washers, and now I have them out and I can show you. So they're kind of like a horseshoe. So what they'll do is they'll sit right in there like that, and these are all I come out of this mower, and my gut says that's not enough. But they'll go over your bar like that, and then again, you can see that better now. Well, not with light, but anyway, those little grooves or those little tits there will go in that groove, and that'll keep it from turning. And then it's actually the collar goes on the end that keeps everything together. So you can never have washers out past this, because there's nothing going to hold them in place. And the same with the other one. So if you want to slide your cutter bar out that way, basically you would take more of these, and that will push your cutter bar out. If you want to bring your cutter bar in, you would take washers from this end and you would move them out to the far end, and that would bring your cutter bar this way. And that in my opinion is what makes John Deere a superior timing system over McCormick Deering. You can do this while it's in the mower. You don't have to take anything apart. All you have to do is take this collar off, and I'm sorry I don't have it here, but take this collar off, slide this one way or another, take your shims out, move them whichever way you want to, and that will allow you to time your cutter bar to your guards and so forth by moving your guards in and out this way. Now, obviously, your lead and everything like that is still going to affect your timing, but it's just a superior way to do it. And the only downfall is, I will find that. The only downfall is, this is the cast iron collar that goes on the end here, and unfortunately, they break. Being a cast iron and so forth. Now, usually it's a catastrophic failure that something happened to cause it to break. Usually it's guys trying to drive the pin out, including me, when it's mushroomed, and the mushroom will just hit that hole and break that cast iron. So that is one side that I don't like about this. The aftermarket ones are steel, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But yeah, it's just a superior way to do it. So that would be your timing. Now, one thing, and again, I've talked about this, John Deere and McCormick Deering both have feet. So what happens on a John Deere shoe is, quite often, I keep stepping up on the light, on a John Deere shoe, these holes get big. That should actually be, I don't know if they started out square on the bottom and round up here, but this is what they look like quite often. And so what happens is, you try and put your bolt in there, obviously that's not right, and that's not going to work. Now, the other thing about John Deere's, well, let me stay here. So what I've taken to doing is, when my plasma table is working, I actually cut a square, and you can do it if you have an old disc that has a square axle. It'll have square shafting, or you can just go get some square shafting and weld it in there, and then you can put your bar in, and you can actually re-drill the holes to where you just welded that fast. Now, you're not going to have a countersunk, and I don't think it's a big deal, because technically you should be running on the sole, not the shoe anyway. So yeah, that obviously has to be taken care of, because that's never going to work. And believe it or not, this guy was using this mower this way, I don't know how long. They had some kind of washer system, you know, it's basically a washer that was smushed in there and took this form and took that form. And it was actually pretty tight. Now granted, I don't know how many times he had to tighten it up throughout the year, but it was tight at the moment. So again, I'll clean that hole up, and I'll make something that fits in there nice and square, and then I'll weld it, you know, around here like that. Nice weld, clean it up, and then put my bar on to where it should be, and then use my bar as a guide to where the hole should be. And then I will re-drill holes in those inserts, so it has a nice solid fit, and it'll hold your bar correctly. Fortunately, it's not just the bolts that hold it. There's a lip here that your bar will fit in to kind of help it from doing this. So while the bolts do a lot of the work, this right here will do a lot of work too. Now, fortunately, also, I said about these here get really thin. So what I mean by that is, and I don't know if guys run them without a sole or what it is, but these seem to wear down here a lot more than McCormick Deering's do. And so they get so thin that they'll actually bend this way or bend this way. And actually, a lot of times I will see them twisted. And once they're twisted, I don't have the tools to straighten them. In fact, once they're bent this way, I kind of give up on them and hope I can find another one. Now, the problem with John Deere over McCormick Deering is, McCormick Deering, there's actually, I think they're coming out of Canada. There's actually someone making new shoes for John Deere or internationals. Nobody as of yet is making a John Deere shoe that I know of. And you can't, again, you kind of think, well, I'll just find a John Deere tractor mower. They're different. They're a little different. So I haven't found any yet that you can use for there. So I haven't really tried that hard either to see if they can be adapted to work for this. But I know this is different on a tractor mower. It looks very similar, but this has this hole here for your draft rod, where the tractor mowers obviously don't have a draft rod. Now, if you're desperate, again, you can do a lot of things if you're desperate. And so far, because there's so few John Deeres that come through the shop, you know, 1 for every 10 McCormick Deerings, I've been able to scrounge enough that I didn't have to worry about it. So those are the main things. You got your timing again with your horseshoes is what I'll call them. I have to fix just about every one of these I get. I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know if it's a bad design. I don't know if, you know, if farmers would just tighten them up when they see it's loose. If that would help. But the thing is, these mowers, again, they're working on 100 years old. So I guess that's a lot to ask for them to be perfect, because they are problematic. And the other thing I talked about in the first video was, for some reason, these holes wear. In fact, I've actually made this already. This is an eccentric that will help you get lead, and arguably that's a better system than McCormick Deering 2. So what happens is whenever you want more lead, you just take this bolt out and turn this, and that will cut your cutter bar. That'll make your cutter bar go this way or this way. That's on that eccentric there. But as I was saying, for some reason, I don't know if John Deere may have had better material, better metal, or what, but these holes do not seem to wear as hard in these hinges as McCormick Deering's do. Now, don't get me wrong, they're not perfect, and they will wear, just not as bad as McCormick Deering's. So both of them have problems, and both of them have different problems. So it's kind of a wash, you know. You pick one, you got this problem. You pick another, you got this problem. So that would be how you would time it. That would be what to watch for in a shoe, and expect it to be a problem, because it is almost all the time a problem. And remember, when you take that nut off the end of your cupping bar, do not do anything other than a pipe wrench, because you will break those little tits off. I guarantee it. I've broken more than I care to admit to. So that's video number 2.